Hi guys, hope everyone's really well. Number 3 of my alternative handshake boards. This one is I'd call it a winged twin hybrid. I guess it's basically a hybrid board. It's got elements of your fat short board, your fatter, shorter version of your short board, what everyone would call a hybrid these days, that you ride in sort of subpar conditions, and it also carries elements of a fish. The specifics of the design as well, the wing and the fin placement is all based around on being specific to a twin and stabilizer setup. So the setback of the fins, the fin position, these boxes are actually, a thruster would actually be up here and a little closer to the rail. These are a little bit further back and a little bit further away from the rail, so it's kind of almost halfway between a thruster position and the keel fin position. So basically, yeah, the fin placement and the wing is mainly set up to complement a twin and stabilizer like the MR style, or I use the Neil Purchase Juniors. I'll show you through some fins shortly and what I would choose with this kind of board. Yeah, so I guess in essence what we're really looking at is we're looking at a hybrid nose. So it's not a fish nose and it's not a shortboard nose, and it's like a kind of hybrid tail but more leaning towards the twin fin side. So obviously if we were to take this tail and just trim this section off here where the wing is, the back end of this would look very much like like an Uber XL or a JS Black Box, or maybe a JS Nitro, or those kinds of boards where you've got a widened, shortened version of what used to be the sort of high performance board. They just widen it out, shorten it up and relax the rocker. This is like taking that and then going another step back towards a fish and adding some of those elements. So as I say, the nose is like semi-fishy, and the tail's kind of a wider, forgiving, small wave short board, but the emphasis is on keeping using this wing to keep a lot of drive and speed under the back foot, under the position where the large twin fins are, and then going down into this step and getting rid of some of that surface area behind to where the trailing fin is. So it's basically set around that twin and trailer setup. This one is 5'10", 21 and a quarter, and this one's bang on 2 3/4. As you see, basically I pretty much, for most of these sort of daily driver to below waves or subpar waves boards, I'm pretty much keeping the same rocker. So you'll see this will be a very recognizable rocker profile. It's basically a fish blank with a fish rocker, and then depending on how performance the board is, I'll just tweak a little bit of extra rocker in it here and there. So this would be a little bit more rocker than my quad fish and a little bit more rocker than my keel fish, and it's a little bit more refined in the nose and tail, and it's a little bit more refined in the rail as well. So it's kind of just the performance version of those slightly more small wave and retro inspired fish. I made this one because I made a very similar one for one of my friends, and he's absolutely loving it. So I kind of in a way I wanted to make another one because I had a couple of refinements and changes I wanted to do, and I also, his was specifically made as a twin and stabilizer, so it literally only had the twin fins and the stabilizer box, and he absolutely loves the Neil Purchase Junior fins, which I also really like. So Neil Purchase Junior, as well as his twin and stabilizer, he also does what he calls a quartet, which is basically a twin and 2 stabilizers. So I really optimized this to take a twin and stabilizer that looks like the MR, and also these Neil Purchase Junior quads, because I really wanted to try them, because I like quads, but they're not always super free at the back end. But then I sometimes find the twins and the twin and stabilizers a bit skatey, so I was kind of like, I'd really like to feel what it feels like with a almost optimized twin and 2 trailers, and see how that goes. So it's quite a versatile fin setup really. So basically the fin plugs are, so these ones are sort of maybe getting towards a maybe not quite an inch, but they're definitely back a decent way from the front fins of a thruster in a quad. And then the back fin sits around the same position. Sometimes it comes up a little bit in the cluster, but when you see the actual fins, the fin sits back in the box anyway. And then these quads, I think I've seen on the Neil Purchase Junior, I think they're very tight. I think they're almost clustered overlapping, so I just relax those back a little bit, so the rear quads are close to the position of a normal rear quad, but the side fins are a little bit back. So it's still that same tighter cluster theory with the twin and stabilizer. So it's a bit of a different fin setup. I wanted to sort of make this so I could try this board myself, this style of board, and all of those fin setups in one board. And the one I did for my friend is a diamond tail, so I was half 50-50 between going for a round tail and a squash, and I drew them both up and ended up just going for the squash because I'm not going to be riding it in fantastic waves. So yeah, just wanted to keep a tail that I'd have a good bit of drive and release. Yeah, we've got I got a little bit more refined rail than one of my other boards. Really nice. I'm really stoked with this rail. Really nice and rounded. Got we're very sharp on this hard edge around the tail. Put a lot of work into getting that right, and then we've got quite a low rail just where the wing is. So yeah, I'm really hoping this goes well, because I was very surprised. I had a quick paddle round on the one I made for my friend, and he's really stoked with it, and it paddles extremely well. Like his is 2.5, and I could actually paddle it fine as well. So it was yeah, kind of bizarre. So I was like, well, maybe I should try one for myself. So this one's just gone up to 2 3/4 basically. So yeah, that's about the walk around of the board. So again, it's another one of my pretty much single concave through from where the nose entry starts, and then it gets deepest about the front foot, and then it splits off into a double through the fins, and then just drops into a tail, drops into some V through the back of the tail. We're fairly thick in the center of the board, but then we get quite refined down to the rail. It's actually pretty much the same rail as I've put on my friend's 2.5 board. It's just a thicker deck, and yeah, that's about it. I've also relaxed the fin. As well as the fin positions, I've also relaxed the fin toe a little bit, so they're not as aggressive as a normal 5 fin would be in the toe. And obviously in futures the fins themselves have the cant built in, so basically the fin setups and the fins that I'm using should all equate to less drag and more speed. So that was kind of the intention behind this as well. You don't need that if you're not riding great waves, you don't need that super aggressive cant that you would get with like a 5 fin FCS setup, and you also don't need a super aggressive toe because you really want to get the maximum speed, especially with those twins and keels. So this fin position and this fin toe will actually work with the 2+1s and the 2+2 quad style, and it'll also work as a keel fin because, again, as I've said on my other boards, with futures all the extra is going to go backwards. So basically you stick a twin in here and you stick a keel fin, and it's going to the keel fin's going to come right back towards where the wing is, and sitting not far off a position it would be if you designed it specifically as a keel. I mean, it'll be slightly forward, but it's maybe like 10 mil or 15 mil. It's not the end of the world, so it'll give you that feel as well if you want to use it as both. Yeah, that's pretty much the board walk around. So these will sort of push the limits of a fish a bit more. You'll get a little bit more hold, they'll be a bit more responsive, so you'll get some of the speed of the fish, and you'll get some of the whippiness of that hybrid shortboard by comparison. So keeping the flat rocker and the decent sized nose, you'll get really good paddle power, and then going for that 2+1 fin setup, you're getting like a little bit more hold than a dedicated twin, but you're also not creating too much drag by going to a full thruster, so it's a really good in-between setup. One thing I'd say, these boards, I've got a couple of boards like this and boards with an aggressive single wing. They are, if you're an average surfer, they are a bit more they're a bit more fussy about where you have your back foot, so you really need to make sure you're getting your back foot back to where it's supposed to be, because if you're hanging around way in front of this wing, the wing's not really, you're not allowing the wing to do its job of releasing where you're supposed to. So yeah, if you're more of an average surfer, or you struggle a bit with certain things, you might find you catch one wave on this and it goes fantastic because you've got your foot in the right position, and then the next wave you've crept forward a bit without realizing, and you're like, oh, it's not turning quite as well. So that's one thing about this kind of board. So yeah, you're gonna be able to ride like a sort of chest high to a decent bit overhead, I'd say. My friend's been riding his in anything from the soft East Coast stuff we get here all the way over to solid West Coast. He said, oh, ideally over on the West Coast a little bit more nose rocker would be ideal, but he said then it probably wouldn't ride so good here. So obviously hit a good balance point for a daily driver for him. And similar boards to this, there's not masses of similar boards, but something like the Cali Twin, the MR Lost California Twin at the slightly lower wave range end, but will handle the bigger, so it's probably like maybe a bit smaller per volume, not really sure. But that's a great board. That performs really well for how it looks actually, the MR Cali Twin. The old Lost RNF, I say it'd be the RNF Redux. A lot of people ride those with a 2+1, and that's got the same wing in it. Merrick do one that's just called I think it's just called the AM Twin, and that's their board that's designed around that twin and stabilizer. It's not the old fish, it's not the old keel fish, it's not the new keel fish, it's not the fish beard. It's called the Almerix Twin, and it's got a step and quite a distinguished swallow. So those are the only sorts of boards that I've seen that are comparable. I'd say Iper makes an amazing looking board like this. Keeler Iper makes an incredible looking board. That's the only other board that I've seen that specifically got a squash wing step. The others are probably going to be a wing twin step, but any of those boards that are designed to be a twin and stabilizer with a wing in the tail, that's this kind of board and this kind of feel basically. So yeah, that's what you can equate that to if you want that similar kind of ride and feel. And as I say, it's gonna give you quite a good varied wave range. And if you're not really a thruster surfer, but you like a fish, but you want something you can push harder, turn a bit harder, and maybe get a little bit more out of the wave range, if you've got a retro fish that's only really working for you in small waves, then this is a good way to go before you get to your hybrid shortboard, or your shortboard, or you just don't have the waves or the ability, or don't like riding a stock high performance thruster, you're just struggling to get them going. This will give you a really good in-betweeny point. So I will come around and show you the concaves, and then we're going to talk through fins and fin position a little bit and wrap it up. All right, cheers guys. So into the concaves on this wing twin. Like I say, it's pretty simple. I just keep it subtle and straightforward. It's basically single double V, and it works for most boards that I use, so hopefully you can see most of this, but I'll just come up through the board and just keep moving it around, so hopefully it catches the camera in the light bit. So as I say, I start with my single all the way down there where the rocker starts to break, and we're looking for it to get deepest basically underneath where I think my front foot's going to land, all being well, and probably looking about 1/4 inch, maybe a bit more on this one. And just before the front fins, I'm looking for it to turn into a double, which you'll probably be able to see a double through there. Hopefully you can see the 2 scoops. One scoop through the whole board turns into 2 scoops there, and that's still below the rail line. And then as we get out behind this wing, I'm looking for that double still, and I'm looking for that to turn into some V as well. So basically the single blends into the double blends into the V, and it just sort of mellows out again as it gets to the very end of the tail. So again, going back through the other way, we've got a V there behind the rear quad fins, and then we're looking at a double there without the V anymore when we get up to the side fins and the wing. And then as we get a wee way in front of the front fins, that double starts to blend into the single, and the single goes all the way through to the nose basically. And as you can see, like you probably see the resin through here, I've tried to build a nice hard edge up on there and get a really refined hard edge around the wing. We've got a nice low rail point here, and the release point, And then very pleased with these rails. We've got still got a nice bit of tuck underneath, so we've got a soft and forgiving rail, but it's actually quite a low apex, and you know that's still gonna bite in pretty hard, and matches in well with the low rocker. So as I was saying, these boards with the wings, a lot of them are really optimized around the twin and trailer set. The thruster fin would be a bit more further forward and a bit closer to the rails. These are a bit further back and a bit further in from the rails, and that's how a twin or keel fin would be also. And then this trailer, that whole cluster is a little bit tighter than it would be. So moving the twin fins back would give you more grip than you would get if you were trying to put that same fin in a thruster set. And as I say, probably more importantly, if you were trying to put a twin and stabilizer set into a normal 5-fin board, if you're running FCS2, the cant on this fin would be like way over here, and it's just going to cause more drag. It might turn better, but it's going to cause a lot of drag that you don't want. So this is kind of the set that is optimized for. I'm just cheating a little bit here because this is actually the Neil Purchase Jr. Chipper Wilson quartet set. So the trailer on the twin and stabilizer looks exactly the same, but I will show you why I wanted to do this fin setup, because I also want to be able to have a crack at running it like this. So that's how a Neil Purchase Jr. quartet looks. It's a twin and 2 trailers. So I was really keen to give that a go because I'm kind of a quad guy, but I like the idea of the twin and trailer. So I thought the twin and 2 trailers in that same tight cluster would be a really good way to try it. I know on the Captain Finco website it was saying, I think Neil Purchase Jr. actually puts these fins even further forward, but I just didn't want to, I still wanted a gap between them. I've seen some of them that look like they're really tight up, and I just didn't want to get it too loose, so I've just moved these quad fins back a little bit so they're in almost a normal quad fin position. So yeah, that's the Chipper Wilsons. If you've got an SCS board, you're probably looking at the FCS and Futures. So the other really good ones are the AM keel. I've got a twin and keel guide video as well that'll help you if you are getting this kind of board. But yeah, the Almerix AMT is good. So that's the AM Almerix twin fin. It's really upright and it's got a long finger trailer fin. The MRs are really good. That is in FCS. The Power Twins are also really good in FCS. There's a lot of Captain Finn's own ones that are really good as a twin and trailer. So again, this is a Chipper Wilson Neil Purchase Jr. one. These have got a lot of area and lots of drive, so they're really fast fins. Possibly a bit too much for smaller guys. The other one I've got to try, which I'm pretty keen to have a go of, is the Troy Elmore. So this is very similar to the Chipper Wilson or the MR. It's just a bit smaller than Chipper Wilson. It's probably closer to an MR. Lots of depth, still lots of area, and then it's quite a deep but not fat rear trailer. So quite looking forward to giving those a go. And as I was saying, if you wanted to, I wouldn't really ride it as a thruster, although you could. You could ride it with a more standard quad setup. That would probably be alright. It's not optimal, but it'd be alright. You could ride it with a split keel kind of setup with the Machado Seaside quads or the controller quads. That would still be okay, but not optimal. And this is what I was saying about, you can get away with switching from this kind of twin or twin and stabilizer set, and with the fin positions in the board and the way Futures work in the cants, you can still run keel fin set perfectly well, because what's going to happen is because the cant's in the fin rather than the board. So let's say if this was a thruster fin, it'd look like that. As a twin and trailer, it's probably going to look a bit more like that, and as a keel fin, it's going to go a bit more like that. And they're all built into the fin on Futures, so it's not a big deal to change from this to this in this board, because the fin positions suit it quite well, and the cant that's already in the fin suits it. And say if I chuck this in, you can see that the position relative to the wing and the extra area is all behind where it was on this one, which is exactly what you want to do as you switch from a twin and trailer to a keel fin, so this will work perfectly fine with that keel fin in it, and it's already got a low toe and it's already got a low cant built into the fin, so there's no reason whatsoever this board won't work as a keel fin. Ironically, my friend that has my diamond tail one that I made for him, he actually really liked that with the FCS modern keel in it, even though the fin would probably not be in quite as optimal position and it's probably got a lot of cant in it. So just goes to show how versatile some of these setups can be. But you know, this board is going to take quite a few alternative fin setups basically. So I've already showed you the concaves, but you know, there's a good close look at the tail and where it breaks, and you can probably hopefully just see like how hard the edge is there. I spent a lot of time trying to get the resin built up into that hard edge, and you'll see how the rails are nice and low, especially at that break and release point. Yeah, put quite a lot of work into getting this right, so very happy, and it's a nice tidy squash tail on the end of that wing. So yeah, that's the fins and the conclusion for this one. So basically it's a sort of small wave to daily driver size board. You're looking at sort of waist to chest all the way up to decently overhead, as long as you've got the right fins in it and the right size of board, and it's going to grip all right, and it's going to perform well, and it's going to give you that fishy feel. So it's not going to be a load of work pumping getting a short board going. It's going to be some wrapping long turns, as well as capable of doing snappy turns with that wing and the reduction in surface area at the back. So yeah, that's number 3 of my shapes. Number 4 will hopefully be coming the week after, and yeah, thanks for watching guys. I'll put a few little build pics on the end of this video so you can see a few pictures of the board mid shape and the template, and probably maybe when I was glassing it or something, I'll just chuck a few pictures in for anyone who's interested on the back end. Yeah, cool. I'm stoked with this one, can't wait to ride it. Thanks for watching, see ya.